You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the Underdog Show. I am your host, executive producer, director, and broadcast engineer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. And my co-host, the star, is Doctor Who of Business, Ben. Hi. Good to see you.
Hi. And yourself. I love the new hairstyle.
Thank you. I just keep walking past the mirror and cutting more and more. I figure one time I'll just have maybe a mohawk. I'm not sure.
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to that. I think you'll be looking great in that mohawk style as well.
Thank you. How have things been with you?
Brilliant. Really, really great. We've met so many of our guests in the whole show, the whole platform from one of the apps called Clubhouse. And recently, I've not been on Clubhouse much because I'm now meeting them in real life. So
how exciting!
And one of those real life people from the app is our guest today, a guy called Daniel Jordan, who has led a very challenging life when something horrible happened to one of his friends who did something naughty. But Daniel got caught up in part of that drama and was arrested many times for things he hadn't done. So the Underdog Show, everyone, is about people who've gone through challenging times in their life, maybe an illness, maybe their parents got rid of them, who knows what happened to them, and how nobody expected them to recover, but they did, and they share their story, and they share the lessons from that story to help some of you who may be going through some of the situations. So our guest today, he is no stranger for being wrongly accused of doing things and being punished for something he didn't do. He will be sharing that journey with us. His name, the amazing Daniel Jordan. And if you've ever seen a film called The Rogue Trader, he's part of that film. All right, let's bring him on, Dr. J.
Hi, welcome, Daniel.
Thank you very much. Welcome to you both as well. It's lovely to be here.
Brilliant, Dr. J. You. Let's let you ask your first few questions with Mr. Jordan. Maybe, yes.
Yes. So, Daniel, as we were chatting backstage and getting to know one another, of course, I love that you gave me a beautiful compliment. So you'll always be in my heart for that. I'm really
just telling it like it is. Definitely, just telling it like it is.
Thank you. I'm really intrigued to hear about your story because, you hear someone gets arrested. Many times people rush to judgment. And then we find out years later that they were incarcerated, they were falsely accused, and they've had to live with that for all that time in their life. And I imagine that takes a toll mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically. So thank you, first of all, for being here to share your story.
My pleasure. With me, it was slightly different. It wasn't so much that it's taken a toll on me insofar as I feel embarrassed or ashamed of it. It was more that I almost felt like someone had stolen my life insofar as I had this amazing life. I couldn't have asked for anything to be going better. And then suddenly overnight, through no control of my own, it was almost snatched away from me. And that's a very difficult situation, especially when you realize that in reality, you haven't done anything wrong. All you've done is stand up and protect and defend your friends, which ultimately is what anyone should do in that situation.
Daniel, do share where you came from and what led up to the situation.
Right, sure. Okay. So basically, the situation.
Our audience knows who you are.
Okay, so basically the situation we're talking about is the collapse of Barings Bank, which happened in, top of my memory, February 26th, 1995 is when the Bank of England basically came out with their announcement. But it pretty much happened February 23rd, when Nick and Leeson decided to leave Singapore. Prior to that, I was working on the London International Financial Futures Exchange, trading financial futures, and doing far better than I probably had expected to. And subsequent to that, got a chance to move out to Singapore, where I cleared through Barings Bank. So Nick Leeson was, in fact, ironically, my risk manager when I moved to Singapore. And I was actually employed I cleared through a company called First Continental Trading, but we were ultimately asked by the Singapore government and the exchange themselves to provide liquidity for a Japanese government bond contract, which is what I was trading. And because of that, and as Barings were the largest customer trading that product in Singapore, I was the counterparty to over 90% of Barings trades. So if Barings traded 100 lots, invariably I was the other side of 90 of those lots. So I was a large part of basically all of Barings trading in Singapore. And
so Daniel, just so the audience understand, what's a lot? How much is it?
A contract. Each contract in the Japanese government bonds was worth $1 million US, and every price increment move in that was $100. Every tick move was $100, and it would move 10, 15 ticks at a time.
Right. So when you're saying like you had 90, was it 90 contracts?
Yeah. Well, for every 100 that Barings traded, I would be the counterparty to 90 of those. So if they traded 1,000, I'd be the counterparty to 900. If they traded 10,000, I was 9,000.
It could be 900 million at a time.
It could absolutely, yeah, and invariably quite often was. So it was huge sums of money moving place, but I was doing what is classed as arbitrage. So I was buying in Singapore and selling in Tokyo, or selling in Singapore and buying in Tokyo. So for small price increment profit or losses each time. Whereas Nick, on the other hand, was supposedly doing the same, but he was in effect just buying outright and taking a view on where the market should go. So obviously taking infinitely more risk on board. So what then happened was, over a period of years, Nick and I became very friendly, and I used to get a lift into work with him. I'd leave quite early in the afternoons because my contract finished quite early. I finished at like 1:30 in the afternoon, and he was normally there till 6 or 7. And I'd go home, go to the gym, go to the pool, have a snooze, and then I'd get a phone call going, "Hey, you coming out for the night?" And would then be out till 2 or 3 in the morning, and then back into work, and et cetera, et cetera. So I spent an awful lot of my working and awake time hanging out with Nick and the other boys from the trading floor. So when Barings collapsed and it became evident that Nick had accrued losses of just shy of $1 billion, you can understand that the authorities weren't best pleased, and they looked at his proximity and his close circle, which I was one of. And I was held by the Singapore authorities and questioned. Initially, I thought I was just helping them with their inquiries as to work out what exactly had happened. But quite soon after that, I realized that was not the case. And they put me on a intent to defraud charge, which carries 3 to 7 years and is very vague. It can mean anything at all, really. And I had to put up $500,000 US in bail, in cash, which I had to lodge with my lawyers. And then I spent 3 nights in Tanimar prison, which is not Changi, but it's a white-collar crime prison. 3 nights there. And then funny story, my then girlfriend at the time used my company Amex card to bail me out, which I thought was quite amusing.
That is amusing. Just Dr. J, just so everyone knows, Barings Bank at the time, I believe it was owned by the royal family, or had something to do with the royal family. It
had ties to the royal family. Used to invest in Barings Bank. Barings was a privately owned bank, but they'd been around for over 200 years. They financed the Louisiana land purchase, so there were no novices in this space. Certainly,
I think they were the second-oldest bank in. I don't know in the UK it was,
they were very well established, a blue blood bank, as you say, and exceptionally well respected within the region as well. So
and I think were they the first bank to go under because of something like this?
I think from a rogue trader perspective, yes, they were. Yes, they were.
So just for our worldwide audience who don't know Barings Bank, so the royal family did invest in it. It was called, as Daniel said, the Blue Bank, and it was nobody had ever seen this before. So one person totally take a bank out of commission. And
ultimately, it shouldn't have been allowed to happen. I mean, there should have been checks and balances in place that were followed, that separated the back office from the front office, and that wasn't the case. So the risk management wasn't there. And I think, listen, don't get me wrong, Nick had been a naughty boy and deserved to go to jail. There's no qualms about that, and he'd say so himself. But for him to go to jail alone, I think is unfair. There were an awful lot of people further up the food chain that deserved to be in there with him, because they were certainly pushing the narrative that more risk was better for profitability and for bonuses and et cetera, et cetera. So he was certainly being coerced, I would say is probably too strong a word, but he was being encouraged to live vicariously and take risks that otherwise probably shouldn't have been taken.
So you were arrested, put in prison for 3 days.
Yeah.
They interrogated you. You told them what you thought was the truth, and they still went after you. From what I understand.
The irony is, when it first happened, I got called in by a commercial affairs department in the serious fraud office in Singapore, and they interviewed me for a full day, and then the next day as well. And I basically broke down exactly what had happened to them and explained it. And it was clear from how I was explaining it, they didn't quite grasp the concept of derivatives, financial futures, options, certainly, and the risk involved with those, and the open-ended risk, I suppose. And then 2 days later, I actually flew down to Australia, because I thought, well, I can't trade in Singapore at the moment. This is going to take a long time to clear up. I might as well get a job on the Singapore Futures Exchange and carry on trading down there. So I flew to Australia without any problems, arrived in Australia, and then had a phone call maybe 5 days into my trip, again from the serious fraud office and commercial affairs department, saying, hey, listen, we've got a few more questions we'd like you to answer. Can you clear some of this up? I'm like, yeah, sure. Listen, send me a fax through of all the questions you've got, and I'll happily answer them. And I've gone, well, can you pop into the office? I said, well, I'm currently in Australia at the moment, so no, not really. I'm back in a couple of weeks. And they went, oh, it's quite urgent. We'd really like you here as soon as possible. Is there any way you can change your flight and come back earlier? So I went, okay, let me see what I can do. So I called up my clearing member, the guy who ran the company that I was trading through. And I said, hey, listen, Singapore, I've got a call from Singapore Monetary Authority and the fraud office, and they want me to come back to Singapore to answer the questions. I'm not sure how comfortable I feel about that. And he said to me, well, firstly, have you done anything wrong? And I went, no. He goes, well, it's a zero-sum game, and they'll be able to work that out. And they've probably already worked that out, in fairness. He said, it would help us as a company if you were to go back, because we still have loads of, unliquidated positions that have been frozen. And if you go back and we show willingness to comply, then it'll show that we've got nothing to hide, and they'll unfreeze those, and we can carry on trading. And it'll mean that all the other traders in our Hong Kong and our Frankfurt and our Chicago and our London office, they can all, we can take the money out and get liquidity and carry on trading. So I was like, yeah, well, that makes sense. All right, I'll call them up and I'll take a flight back. So I took a flight back to Singapore, was arrested at the airport, and taken pretty much straight to jail. So, yeah, they were less than forthcoming in the reasons for wanting me back to Singapore.
Daniel, that's what I was going to ask you. Had it occurred to you that maybe it was a self-serving desire to have you go back as opposed?
Absolutely it did. But again, bearing in mind, I'm 52 now, and that was, 95. So I was young and naive and didn't quite realize. It's not that I didn't realize the consequences of my actions, but I certainly didn't see anything that I'd done as being wrong. I hadn't defrauded anyone. My only crime was being best friends with the guy who brought a bank down, being Barings' largest customer in Singapore, and having been successful and good at what I did. So the fact that they looked at the fact that Nick on this hand had lost £1 billion, Daniel on this hand last year was paid 7.2 million, they're going to go, well, there has to be a correlation between that. And my thought, maybe naively, was that it wouldn't take them long to reverse engineer that to find out that what I'd done was legal. I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd acted with the best intentions for the market and for everyone else, and was just doing my job.
Right, and from what I understand, the whole thing went further with all your assets being frozen.
Yes. They,
And you
they
being
froze. Yeah, they froze. So my last year, obviously I had a few years prior to that where I'd done okay, but my last year I got paid $7.2 million. And I'd literally been paid maybe 4 months before that had all happened. And so the authorities look at it and they go, well, this guy's 25 years old. He's getting paid $7 million. He works 3 hours a day. Every time we're looking at video surveillance of the floor, he's sat at his desk playing Game Boy. How is this possible? So I can understand their concerns, but equally, as I would say to them, you can't confuse activity with accomplishment. If you know what you're doing and you're doing it well, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to do so. But the problem I think that they had was that Nick wasn't around. They had a huge scandal on their hands, and they needed. I think scapegoat's probably a too strong a word, but they needed to be seen to be doing something to clean up or clamp down on the industry. So they, as a matter of precaution, and I wouldn't blame them for doing so. They froze all of my bank accounts. Yeah, they froze 7 of my trading accounts as well. So they froze my Frankfurt, my Australian, my Chicago, my Hong Kong, my Singapore, my London, and my Swiss accounts were the 7 they froze. Oh, sorry, the 7 they tried to freeze. The one that they couldn't freeze was Hong Kong, because Hong Kong basically was vying for the title of being the financial center for Southeast Asia. And they didn't want to be dictated to by Singapore, so they refused to freeze my accounts, which was great because I was then able to spread trade and roll my capital basically all into the Hong Kong account and slowly get it out over the period of 18 months.
Wow! So after our sponsors share a little bit about their products and so on, we'll go through what happened afterwards and how you lost the rest of your finance.
Cool. Yeah.
This is a fascinating story.
It's been emotional. See you in a bit.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
The world of healthcare is benefiting us in many ways, but the risk of becoming a victim to an airborne infection is increasing at a fast pace too. There are threats from viruses, allergic pollen, and chemicals which cause you loss of health, income, business, mental health, family and friends. All are at stake. One solution to this threat are the BV Air Sanitation Placide-based systems. When you call our team on 0208 104 3253, you find out about the amazing protection available. Protection that uses certified Battlefield, tested, standard and customized air disinfection systems for your personal and business use. Each system uses a filterless technology known as Placide, which attacks all airborne particles with microlighting to destroy and eliminate viruses and other harmful particles in your office, transport and home. You also benefit from extra bonuses such as low running and maintenance costs, no regular filter and part changes. You get to work with our trained experts and professional staff and be made aware of the latest in airborne protection and disinfection strategy. Keep yourself healthy by working with our trained experts and Placide virus killing systems, which keep you safe from airborne viruses. BV Air Sanitation Limited. We save lives, save businesses, and prevent infection. Schedule your free consultancy call and virus protection checklist. Call 0208 104 3253 or connect to us on www.bvbuster.com.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
It's what we do together that counts. The Big Alliance story. A true story about faith over adversity, perseverance, and entrepreneurship. Read Earl's story and how he became an entrepreneur. Available on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible.com. For more information, contact Earl Hurd at earlhurd@bigalliance.com or call 1-800-460-4242.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back, everyone. You are watching Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the Underdog Show. I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Ben Chai, Doctor Who of Business, and our guest, Daniel Jordan. Daniel is just sharing his incredible story of how he was falsely accused, arrested, put in jail, put up $500,000 bail, then had his assets frozen, and we can't wait to hear more. So I'm just speechless about everything you went through at such a young age in your 20s.
It's been emotional. Funny enough, unlike in the States, for instance, and I think Europe doesn't really have bail, but unlike the States, where if you're on $500,000 bail, you go to a bail bondsman and they put up 10% of that. So they put up 50 grand. Singapore isn't the same. Singapore, you put up 500,000. If you're on 500,000, that's what you put up. So I had to park that with, actually, like I said before, actually, my girlfriend at the time put it on on my Platinum American Express card, her supplementary card, which I'd got her, that was attached to my company card. And then she called the guy that I used to clear through in the States at 3 a.m. in Chicago. Sorry. And she's like, hi, and he's like, hello, who's this? She's like, hi, this is Laura. Sorry to trouble you so late. And Roger's like, hey, it's like 3 a.m. here. Laura, what's up? She goes, oh, it was just a courtesy call, Roger, to let you know that I used Daniel's Amex card. He's like, okay, that's fine. Lisa will sort it out in the back office. It's no big deal. But thanks for the call. So how much did you use? She went, $500,000. And instantly, without missing a beat, she says, he went, Sing dollars, US dollars. And she went, US dollars. He went, okay, you have my attention. so that's the first time he realized that things weren't quite going according to plan. So that was quite amusing.
So tell us a little bit more about your journey, because you still had a fair amount of finance that wasn't frozen in Hong Kong. Yeah,
but the majority of it was frozen. But I was still allowed to trade, so I was able to roll those trades over through spreads and basically get it to Hong Kong. Not, legally, it's not that I did anything wrong. I may have bent the rules slightly, but it was all legal. So I ended up basically rolling everything into Hong Kong. And then from there, my parents live in Cyprus, lived in Cyprus. My father's passed away about 12 years ago. I was able to send increments of, I think the first amount I sent was £800,000. Then I sent another 700,000, then £1 million, then $500,000. Basically, I sent just over £5 million back then, which is about 7.5 million US or so. So I ended up sending all of that over to Cyprus. And the reason I did that, there was a very strong reason I did that. And that's because, a little bit of a backstory. Nick, myself, and a reporter were out one night in a bar, had a few drinks. A couple of Singapore Airlines stewardesses came in. Long story short, one of them said something to Nick about him looking like an arse. So he went, this is what an arse looks like. And he pulled his trousers down and showed his bottom. They were outraged as you would be. It wasn't a very sensible thing or polite thing to do. They were outraged. And they're like, oh, we're going to call the police. So he goes, Dan, have you got a phone? I went, yeah. I had my phone. He's thrown a phone over to him. I'm going to use that one. Won't cost you anything. So they've called the police. We've carried on drinking. The police turned up, arrest us obviously, and we spend a night in a prison cell at a police station, Tanimé police station actually. So come sort of early in the morning. It's a Wednesday. I remember it specifically because it was a Wednesday night, which was ladies' night, and Thursday was a work day. So we're rattling on the bars at sort of 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning going, oh, yeah, where do we got a phone call? The guy comes over and what his exact words, but he basically said, listen, this isn't CSI, mate. You don't get a phone call here. You get let out when we tell you get let out. We're like, oh, can we please have a phone call? He goes, all right, we'll give you a phone call each. So he hands me the phone and I dial up and, the phone rings. I pick it, it gets answered. And I went, hey, Akiko, listen, I need to buy 147 March JGBs, market on open. And I go, Nick, have you got anything you need covered on the open? And he's looking at me going, no, what? No. I'm like, all right, then, yeah, listen, Akiko, March, JGBs, buy 147, market on open, hand the fill over to Akayo and tell her I'm going to be late. So I put the phone down and he goes, what? What am I supposed to do? Oh, well, you're supposed to get us out. I have to cover the JGBs, market on open. I don't have a choice. I'm stuck in here with you. I don't have a choice. She's like, fine. So he then makes a phone call about half an hour later, and he calls Fi, who was the floor manager of Barings. And he says to Fi, hey, Fi, listen, I need a favor from you. You need to pop out and get me. And Fi says to him, Nick, there's no way I can get out of anywhere. I'm stuck in here. The Nikkei's going crazy. Not only have you not turned up, but the largest market maker in the JGBs hasn't showed up either. And I'm inundated with orders that I can't get filled. There's no way I can leave anything. And Nick explains, he goes, well, that reason is because he's standing next to me in this cell. And so if you don't come and get us both out, you're going to have this for the rest of the day. So Fi goes, you know what? I'll send my cousin down, TTH, he'll sort it out. What do you need? And Nick said, oh, well, we need a Singaporean local who vouches for us and puts up $5,000 each. So he's like, fine. So along comes TTH, Fi's cousin, who doesn't even work for Barings. He trades on his own in the euro dollars. He comes, he puts up $10,000, $5,000 each, bails us out, and off we go. When the Barings debacle happens, they call TTH in and say to him, he was Singaporean, by the way. They're like, so when you bailed out Nick that time in jail, how did he pay you back? And he's like, pay me back what? He gave me the $5,000 that I put up. He goes, okay, well, your trading account, how much money have you got in your trading account? And Fi says, well, I've got about $400,000 in there. He goes, well, we think you've got $1.2 million in there. He goes, oh, well, yeah, that's not all my money. It's my group. I've got a group of traders, and combined, we've got 1.2, of which 400 of it's mine. Everyone, well, we think that you've traded that money with Barings, and Nick's given you that as a thank you for getting him out of jail. So we're going to fine you $1.2 million. So they took all of his money away just for bailing Nick out maybe a year and 3 months previously. So I've suddenly thought, whoa, this guy's done nothing wrong, and it's cost him $1.2 million. I'm Nick's best friend. I'm the guy who drove him and Lisa to the airport when they left. I've spoken to him 11 times on the phone whilst he's been potentially, a fugitive, and they've frozen $7.2 million of my money. Maybe I should be concerned. So that's why I started running the cash. It wasn't anything other than I thought I was going to get rolled over by the Singapore authorities.
Great. So then what happened after that with the finance to Cyprus?
Oh, that's the fun part. That's where the fun and game started. So, yeah, the money I sent to Cyprus was, and bearing in mind, this is 95, where interest rates were ridiculously high. I think interest rates in the UK were between 12 and 15%, and overnight at one stage it actually went to 17%. I mean, something unheard of in this current
18.5%, Daniel.
As you well know with your property time, absolutely. So interest rates were ridiculously high, and property was by default exceptionally cheap because people weren't cash rich and they couldn't afford the interest on borrowing the money. And banks were obviously less concerned, or more concerned with how you're going to repay it than asset appreciation. So being cash rich was a great time to get into property back in the early 90s. So I gave my parents strict instructions as to what they should do with the money and what I wanted to invest it in and how and where I wanted it divested and blah, blah, blah. And I ended up buying houses and shops, strips of shops and some land, etc. in Cyprus. And the rest of it was supposed to go to London to buy strips of houses in Notting Hill and an area called Norwich near the university. And I had a cunning game plan. Unbeknownst to me, although known to my mother, but she felt that it was sensible to protect me, was the fact that my father had a gambling problem. And in the 18 months that I was held in Singapore, he managed to steamed through the whole 5 million I sent him, plus at least another 1.5 million. So when I came back, I had to sell a collection of Ferraris, a flat in Chelsea on the King's Road, place in the Docklands, and literally liquidate as much as possible to kind of get back to, and still for years after that, I was left with a significant chunk of debt because what in my experience, and other people may deal with it differently, I didn't deal with this whole thing particularly well. Even when I was released and allowed back to the UK, I had to struggle for almost another year to get my trading license because I'm to this day I'm still on what's classed as an intent to defraud charge in Singapore, because if they release me from that charge, they could be liable for defamation of character, potential loss of earnings, false arrest, etc., and all these other things, wrongful imprisonment. So I'll be on that holding charge forever. That's no doubt. And I go back to Singapore every other year. I've gone to the Grand Prix most years. I've got friends there. I travel in and out. I've traveled in and out of Singapore over 30 times subsequent to this, and never have any problems. When you get through customs and you give them the passport and they put the name in, you see them go tap tap tap. Well, hold on. There's a little button press and some questions, but apart from that, it's no big deal. But for me, I think because I suppose my rise financially and success-wise was so meteoric that when I came crashing down far harder than I had the capacity to deal with at that age, or any age really. So I took it really badly. I was spiraled into depression for 3 to 5 years probably. So fighting to get my license in London was a hardship. And eventually my legal team, and the legal team actually of the SFA, wrote to Singapore and said, unless you can show us within the next 3 months any valid reason as to why we shouldn't issue Daniel Jordan with a trading license, we're going to go ahead and do so. And they didn't hear within 3 months, and I finally got my license, and I've been back trading ever since. But I think once something like that happens to you, you have this sudden risk-off mentality where you're like, whoa, hold on, my whole life's been stolen from me. I need to protect what little I don't have anymore. And you become infinitely more cautious than you otherwise should be, I suppose, and you don't take as many risks. But ultimately, I think the lesson that I would tell myself if I could travel back in time would be, if you made it once, you can make it again. And if you can't, you didn't deserve it in the first place. So don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your ambition or your ability. Don't curtail it or pigeonhole yourself. Just go as hard as you did to begin with, because you did nothing wrong. And, long term, the only thing that's going to stop you getting there is yourself. So that would be my lesson to myself. Unfortunately, I didn't take it back then.
So Daniel, I'm guessing that your father gambled everything that you had back to him, and so you had a few assets left, because it sounds to many people at the moment that you had just this fantastic life up till
I did. I did.
You're talking about Ferraris. You're talking about the Rogue Trader for me is like, the Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it's the precursor to that. It was like,
hey, listen, let's not get confused here. Jordan Belford was a step above. I mean, he was different level. So we're not even going to pretend we were anywhere in that.
It's like the baby brother. It's the precursor. It's like who before Darth Vader became Darth Vader. His journey.
Funny enough, I'd even go one before that, and you guys probably again wouldn't remember, but there was Michael Milken and Ivan Boesky from the Drexel Lambert days. And ironically, my first trading day on the London International Financial Futures Exchange, I started in late '89, I think, and I moved into a booth that used to be an old Drexel's booth, and it had the old Drexel Lambert sticker there. And I'm like, Drexel Lambert, who are they? I can remember thinking back then, and the irony that things would.
So for our audience, if you don't know who they are.
Yeah, I mean they basically bankrupted California State with their subprime bonds, and they had some very, very inventive financing for bond pricing.
So how when you say that you had to pay off debts, what I can't see any debts, Daniel. I'm sorry. I
have a question. So I missed this. So I think you said you had $7.2 million in assets that were frozen. Were they subsequently unfrozen, or what happened?
No, 7.2 million was the money I moved over to Cyprus.
Got it. Okay, I thought
and I had money that I'd made. I'd been making money for 3 or 4 years prior to that as well. So I had houses and blah blah blah. What happened, unfortunately, with the debt, as you're asking, Ben, is that my father had basically got my aunties to guarantee properties and businesses against further money he had taken out. So that's why there was more debt. That he spent the 5 million I sent him, and then he spent about another 1.8 on top of that. So basically, they'd guaranteed their pharmacies and their dental practices and their houses, etc., etc. So I felt an obligation to clear that because they'd done so in the belief that I was sending more money.
Right. Dr. J, would you like to do our last sponsorship before we finish Daniel's story?
Yes, I would. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll be right back after we hear from one of our sponsors, Diane Floyd Beam.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Story Garden. Your host, Diane Bame. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Diane Floyd Bame tells wonderful stories that warm the heart, spark the imagination, and unite people and families across generations. For children, Diane's Harry the Camel connects with all of us who've ever wondered how different our lives might have been if only we'd been born something better, like a wonderful horse instead of an ordinary camel. In the end, we all learn along with Harry that there's nothing better than just being yourself. Diane's Little Girl in the Moon looks down on earthbound children and wonders if they know she's just like them. A story of love, home, and the bond between mother and daughter, its powerful theme that we're each of us different yet all of us the same plants a seed in children that promises to blossom within a loving and trusting grown-up. Diane's new biography, Rise, recounts the experiences of her grandmother, Ruby, to reveal the hidden strength of the human spirit. Ruby's story inspires all of us to become the best versions of ourselves. You'll find all of Diane's delightful books and much more at dianefloydbame.com. Visit dianefloydboehm.com. That's dianefloydbame.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. The most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned into.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to Dr. Jacalyn, the Underdog Show. Hello, welcome back. Doctor Who, good to see you. Daniel?
So Daniel, I'm just thinking that you had this wonderful life, that you were flying around the world, you had Ferraris, and then you suddenly lost some of it, and then you lost the rest through your dad. You said you were a little bit depressed for a couple of years. Did you ever feel suicidal? Or did you ever want to kill your dad? You know, I mean, what was the emotions? Did you feel?
Strangely enough, I didn't want to inflict any harm on anyone else. I could probably say that if you'd given me an AK-47 on a roof terrace while I was in Singapore, things might not have been so pretty. But fortunately, that wasn't an option. So I was quite lucky. I definitely had a lot of anger, but it was in a self-destructive manner rather than an aggressive outward at anyone else type of manner. It was almost a case of, I knew a lot of people who had made a significant amount of money and through vices such as drink or drugs or whatever else had lost it all or gambling. But, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I'm relatively sensible. I don't gamble. Yet still, I've managed to dust off more money in 18 months than most people make in a lifetime. And I think I was more annoyed at myself for not And it's ironic because you always think that, you know, your parents are the people you can trust the most, and equally your best friends are supposed to be the ones who look after you. So I found the difficulty of the fact that once I was incarcerated is too strong a word, you know, under house arrest, certainly in Singapore, or country arrest, that people's attitudes towards me changed. Even ones who knew that I'd done nothing wrong.
Like how?
You know, they'd cross the road when they saw you. They'd pretend not to see you if you were out. You know, I used to go to, you know, I'm of Cypriot descent. You know, I had a British passport as well, and I'd go to the British embassy, and they'd, you know, they're pretty useless. That would be just tea and sympathy, and, you know, tea biscuits and a pat on the shoulder, and oh, well, it'll all work out. But you could see the mind working as well. They'd be like, well, got a 25-year-old lad here who's caused a massive embarrassment to this government, and he's earned X, and he's, you know, wrongfully arrested. But we've got X amount of billion in trade with a country who we really need to keep sweet. So who and what do we look after? Yeah, he's a British subject, but you know what? Let's just, you know, have another biscuit, Daniel, have another rich tea and a nice cup of tea, and, you know, everything will be fine. But yeah, so they were no help whatsoever.
Daniel, I'm wondering, you shared with us about the fact that people would look away, they wouldn't engage with you. Did you have any group of people who actually contacted you and said, hey, is this true? Like, they actually wanted to hear from you what was going on?
I had an idiot friend who, when it all kicked off, sent me a postcard. And the postcard said, the police are off the trail. The money's hit Zurich. I'll see you in 3 weeks in Rio as planned. That was his postcard. Now, you can imagine the amount of trouble that postcard caused me. I can't even, we don't have long enough for me to tell you the amount of times I was dragged in and questioned and interrogated over that postcard, over phone messages that people left on my thing. So from quite early on, you know, I explained to my financial backer in Chicago, I was like, people can't contact me. Stop, you know, you need to stop them from calling me and leaving, because people don't realize it's a joke. They don't realize it's a joke over here. They don't have an understanding of humor. So I got dragged in, and they thought that I had conspired with Nick to bring down Barings because I had a terminal disease and I only had months to live. And they'd based that off a phone conversation that someone had left on my answer machine when I had a new girlfriend, and had left a message going, hi, this is Dr. Jones, just calling to say your test results from the clinic have turned positive. I'd advise you and any previous partners to come down and get checked out for X, Y, Z, and blah, 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 and refrain from blah, blah, blah. So, you know, having a laugh. And I went through a good week's interrogation over this until they said to me, so who's Dr. Jones? And I'm thinking, do I know anyone called Jones who's got a doctorate? That I don't know. And I don't know. And then they play me back my phone messages from 6 months ago. And again, I'm laughing. I'm thinking, you can tell that's a joke, right? And they're like, why would you joke about a health issue that's so serious? I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, a lot of people were doing it for their own protection as well as mine, but you can't help but take it personally. You know, when you're almost ostracized and you're in a foreign country and you're under house arrest and your flat's bugged and you're being followed everywhere, it kind of gets to you. It can't not, I don't think.
I don't understand your spiral of depression. And you said, so what did that mean? You don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't. Does that mean you just stay in bed all day? And
do you know what? Funny enough, yeah, I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time asleep. I would not get up till 3 in the afternoon, and then I would stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning watching cowboy films or just feeling sorry for myself. And I could always spiral it back to something. So, for instance, and this was quite a few years afterwards, I was out with some friends on a motorbike, and we stopped at a cafe for a cup of coffee. And I've taken the lid off to put my little sweetener thing in it, and I'm stirring it around, and I've lent my cup on the ledge of an estate agent's. And as I look in the estate agent's, I see a 3-bedroom, 2-story apartment in Chelsea on the King's Road, that's just been sold for £2.3 million. And I'm like, that used to be my apartment, and I sold it for 400. I had to sell it for 450. So, and then suddenly your mind goes, well, I should still have that, and I should still have 20 others, and I should have, and then you just suddenly get angry. So you have to say to your friends, listen, lads, I'm really not in the right mood to get on my bike again. I'm gonna go for a little walk. I genuinely sat down on the pavement and had a little sob. I'm not gonna lie to you. You just feel like the whole world's against you, and everything you've done, you don't understand why these things happen. I'm a lovely bloke. You know, I haven't done anything to hurt anyone. Yeah, all I've done is be good at my job and be a good mate.
Like a nice guy, doesn't he, Dr. J?
Yes, very nice. Yes, and he does.
What was the turning point, Danny? When did you suddenly think, you know what? If I could do it before, I can do it again. You know what? I don't want to, because Dr. J, if I swear on it, then she'll ban the show. But you know, sod the parents and the best friend and stuff. Yeah. I can do it again. When did that kind of realization come into you?
I'll let you know when it happens, Ben. Listen, I'm not going to lie to you. That, you know, I've had some success since. I won't lie, and I've had things, but I always feel that I've always inhibited my own ability to fulfill my potential, and I don't know what that is or what's holding me back. There's always this little voice in the back of my head saying, you know what, you can work as hard as you like and do as much as you can, but it's going to get taken away from you for no reason. So I'm infinitely more positive now than I have been for a very long time. But I still, don't get me wrong, I still have moments where I'm very angry still, and I should probably go and see someone and talk to someone about that. I did for a while. I did, and it helped, but it's difficult, I find personally, when I look around and see people that I don't feel necessarily deserve to be where they are compared to what I was doing at the time. And, you know, whether it's resentment or whether it's just constantly harking back to the same thing over and over again, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. But there was a point where you stopped being depressed.
Yes.
Sure, you every so often you go back into the curling up under your duvet, you know, you may have an anger moment, but there was that turning point, you know, because you're trading now, and I know trading's different. I know that the computer systems are so much faster than compared to back in the 80s, 90s, but something got you out of it, and where you just said, all right, you know, I'm going to get these angry moments, I'm going to get this thing, but I'm going to live my life now as best as I can.
I think a lot of it as well is when I was trading, when I moved out to Dubai and I was trading out there, I used to travel quite regularly to India, and I'd travel up to Dharamsala, which is where the Dalai Lama lives in exile, and I'd go for teachings at the temple up in Dharamsala, and I think it was a realization that I have so much to be grateful for, and you know, money isn't the be all and end all of everything. It's, you know, as long as I'm living to my potential and fulfilling my potential, then, you know, putting a financial number on it isn't a way of measuring it as such. And I think that was a great comfort to me. But it's something I'm still working on.
Yeah.
A comment I want to make is being here in the States, there's a lot of focus on who has what, how many homes you have, cars. There's a lot of some people place a lot of value on money and material things. And so what I'm hearing from you is at a very young age, because of your talent and your intelligence and who you were connected with, you were able to earn huge amount of money, more than most people could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And then circumstances happens, you lost the money, and here you are now today, here to share your story with us. So it doesn't seem like you have an attachment to money and to things, whereas maybe before you did. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Go ahead.
It's funny. And again, some of my friends would say, the money didn't change you. You were obnoxious before you had money. So hopefully they were joking. But I don't necessarily think the money changed me as such. It allowed me to do things that I wouldn't otherwise do. But again, it's, what if you've got 100,000 in the bank or $1 million in the bank or 10 million in the bank? It's still the same hamburger. It's still the same bottle of Coca-Cola. It's still your same flight to wherever. You're just maybe flying first class instead of business or economy. There's very little that really changes. Sure, it allows you certain luxuries. Having absolutely no money is horrific, and I think that goes without saying. But scales of wealth, to me, it's more about whether you're filling your potential or not. So if my maximum potential was to earn $100,000 a year and I'm earning 80,000, then I'm living to 80% of my potential. If my potential is to make $10 million and I'm making $5 million, I'm only living to 50% of my potential, even though I'm, earning $5 million compared to someone who's earning 80,000. It doesn't matter. It's what your potential is. So I think, it's very difficult to justify or to quantify in financial terms, certainly.
I think that's very interesting, Daniel. My potential really is to probably be worth over $1 billion, but I don't really care in terms of finance what's there. I'm really trying to live a happy life as best I can, doing the things that I like doing, helping people get out of their crap, like this, which is what this show is about.
Yeah.
When I met you in the cafe, I'm trying to be negative to you, but you're the most positive. I'm trying to Daniel, blah, blah, blah. No, Ben, it's like this. It's so. I don't necessarily view 100,000. If that is your potential and you earning 80,000, I don't believe that's you, not hitting your potential. I just believe that's what you've chosen because you've got other things to do.
Yeah, listen, ultimately I think it comes down to two very simple things: gratitude and happiness. As long as you realize what you need to be grateful for and you can be happy, then that's pretty much the secret of everything, right? I mean, I'm healthy, I'm fit, I don't have any ailing issues health-wise. I've got reasonable amount of common sense. So ultimately, what else do I need, right? Everything else can be replaced. There's so much in life that you can't put a price on, and too many people think that you can. And I think once you realize that and you're grateful for those things, it certainly helps to lift the cloud. It doesn't necessarily move all the clouds away from you, but it helps certainly to lift them.
Right. So gratefulness, I think, is a core for many.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Is that what you learned from the Dalai? Is it?
Well, funny enough, it wasn't the Dalai Lama himself, but it was one of the monks was telling me. He said, people come here with so many different problems, and all of them to them are serious problems. And if you were to get everyone who comes into this temple and put them around a big table, and they were all able to visibly lay their problems onto the table in front of them, you would very soon snatch your problems back up off that table. And I can remember that being a kind of whoa moment for me, going, this guy's got a point. I mean, the things that are concerning me, why do I have to fly first class and the guy next to me is asleep snoring when normally I fly by a private jet? And I'm joking, but you know what I mean. First world problems compared to real problems, it's no comparison. And once you don't get me wrong, if you've got problems, it doesn't mean, someone could say to you, oh, but there are starving children in Africa and there's genocide going on in blah, blah, blah. Yeah, of course there are. It doesn't reduce your problems, but it's a matter of keeping those problems in perspective and going, what I'm dealing with is still affecting me because it's personal to me. But in the grand scheme of things, what have I got to be grateful for in balance against this? And once you make, I have a gratitude list on my iPhone in my lists. I have 3 things I put in every single day that I'm grateful for. And if I'm going through a tough time, I just scroll through, and I can scroll through 4 or 5 years and just pick a day and read through 3 things and go, you know what? Life ain't that bad.
I love that. I've heard people obviously doing affirmations. I do that too, but I love the idea of putting it on your phone and keeping it there for duration, so you can always check it back. It's
brilliant, honestly.
It really is. I have a question for you in the time we have remaining. So your whole life was changed. You had no control over this. It's just basically you're living one way and now all of a sudden it's changed. And I personally would feel I might have trust issues with being happy, thinking that maybe it's fleeting. You know, I'm in this relationship, maybe it's going to be gone. I just wondered, what's your relationship like with trust today as opposed to before?
I think I'm probably still too trusting, which is not necessarily a good thing, but equally it's not a bad thing either. I think that the natural reaction, and probably one that I had myself, is to build walls around yourself to protect you. But ultimately, it never protects you. All it does is stop the right people getting in. So you shield yourself off from every opportunity that's out there and every possible chance for happiness by being a recluse. And that serves no one, certainly not yourself. So I think I'd rather be more trusting and continuously be let down than be suspicious of everyone and never have an opportunity to discover true friendship or true love or true, authenticity. And don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect at that. I have my moments too. So, that sounds very preachy and as though I've got it all figured out. I clearly don't, but I like to think I have a road plan as to where I need to be and how to get there. But, as with everything, there are bumps along that road and, I hit a few of them. So,
transparency. Doctor Who, I just wanted to ask you, where would you say you are in terms of trust? Are you too trusting or are you questioning authenticity?
No, I'm not too trusting at all, but I am probably a bit too nice. So I've surrounded myself with a team who make the decision about what I'm allowed to do with large sums of money. And they'll say,
I need me a team like that. That's what I need me a team like yours.
And they'll give me all the due diligence, and then it's on me. Like, okay, Ben, we don't think that blah 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 blah. So recently, I've put some investment into something. Everyone says no, but so now it's just up to me to make that decision. That's
so
it.
I've got a magic 8-ball, which is kind of the cheaper version of that, but
Daniel, I have a friend. He made a lot of money. He became a playboy. Then he gave it all up, and now he is a monk in Thailand. And he gives people great advice and just shares a little bit of his life. And for him, potential and meeting potential is very different from, hey, this is him hitting his potential. And I feel like, from the time I had that meeting with you in the cafe, that it's like you're this guru just sharing from your life.
Very kind of you to say so, but I certainly wouldn't go that far.
Are you thinking of becoming a monk, Daniel?
I wasn't. Funny, ironically, Jacalyn, I was a monk for 3 days when I was living in Burma. I did a year and a half of volunteer work out there. And one of the girls whose father worked at the school that I was teaching at, unfortunately, her grandfather, passed away, and I was invited to be a monk. And my only concern about the whole monk thing was shaving my eyebrows off. Shaving my hair wasn't a problem, but losing the eyebrows was. I kind of saw them as almost like Samson when he cut his hair. I was like, if I shave my eyebrows off, man, I'm going to lose all my strength. Whenever you see crazy smart people on TV or in movies, they've always got wild eyebrows. So. But obviously they grew back, so it wasn't the end of the world. So I was a monk for 3 days.
I am blown away. You've done it all. Yeah. So tell us, if you would, what are you doing now? I know you're doing trading, but what does your life look like today?
It looks very different than it was before. It's more structured time-wise, I suppose. I do some property stuff as well. I do a lot of trading. Crypto's been slightly emotional since May the 10th. I'm not going to lie. It's been up and down, to say the very least. But I'm just trying to, I'm trying to learn new things and experience as much as I possibly can. I think life is about experience points and how many you can clock up. So anything new, as long as it's not dangerous and doesn't hurt anyone else, then I'm happy to give it a go.
Brilliant. Well, there you have it. I personally have learned a lot from you today.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say so.
Just tons, from gratitude to looking at everything as a new way to learn something new. Just fantastic.
And the most important lesson, I would imagine, is if your friend loses £1 billion and brings down a UK bank, don't drive him and his wife to the airport. That's probably the lesson to be had here.
I'll put that in the write-up.
One of many lessons, for sure.
No doubt.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, Daniel, I hope to get to see you before you vanish off to.
It'll be a fleeting trip. I've got to go back to Ireland to sign some stuff, and it's basically going to be like a 3-day trip. And then I think I'm off to Germany, Athens, and then Cyprus. So I'll be gone pretty much for the summer.
You've recovered a lot of your life, maybe not to the multi-million extent that you used to have it at, but it sounds like you're on the up, dude.
Hey, listen. I'm flying Ryanair, but I'm still flying. So
exactly.
It's the airline where you have to stand up. You're strapped in.
As good as Jacalyn, as good as it's.
I like standing. I would think that would be interesting.
They tried at one stage to charge disabled people for the use of a wheelchair, and then they wanted to charge you to use the toilets on board as well. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. But in fact,
Ryanair is I think it's a cheap discount Irish airline, if I remember correctly.
Basically, it is. It's like the EasyJet and the Ryanair types of the world. Basically, if everything goes okay, they're all right. If something goes wrong, it's horrific. So you just hope nothing goes wrong.
I'd like you to share with us and our audience, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10 on happiness today?
On happiness, I am a naive and overexcited 8. But if I was realistic, I should probably be way closer to the halfway mark. But it's more that I'm able to convince myself otherwise. So yeah, I'd say I'm about an 8.
Good. That's what it's about, right? It's how we frame it up in our minds.
You know what? Ultimately, I think it is. Yeah, ultimately, I think it is.
Great. Well, maybe one day I'll share one of those Ryanair flights with you, Daniel.
Please take photographs. Take a video. I want to see the.
I think they'll probably charge you for photos as well. So
right, and that would be my pleasure to pay for those photographs.
Well,
yes. Well, I think sorry, Dr. J.
No. Go ahead. I was just going to say about Clubhouse. I know you're over on Clubhouse. If anybody wants to connect with you or reach out to you.
Yeah, I'm just at Daniel Jordan, so it's pretty straightforward. But it's a fabulous platform. I've really enjoyed it and got some great information and knowledge from it. So it's amazing the type of people you get on there, the broad spectrum of all of society, and how everyone is so interactive and engaging. I do really like it, and it's taken a plunge in popularity quite significantly recently, which I don't necessarily understand, but I think it's definitely going to be a platform for the future.
Daniel, it's just like the stock market.
I think it's also because people are getting out, and so they're not spending as much time on devices. But I think one of the benefits of Clubhouse, and I always say this, I'm not a paid spokesperson, but if you'd like to hire me, go to drjacalyn.com, contact us. What I was going to say is that I think it gives a certain percentage of people who are on there insights as to what is going on around the world. So for people,
a legitimate voice.
Yes, it's a real voice. It's not fake news or what we hear in the news. But wherever you live, maybe you don't know what's going on in this country or that country or how this culture lives. And now we're able to hear it for ourselves. I think that's, to me, the huge part of it.
Yes, absolutely. I'd have to resonate. Yeah, that resonates for me. I'd have to agree with that.
Dr. Who, any thoughts from you?
No, Dr. J. Clubhouse is like a city. You've got great people, and you've got not so great people, do due diligence on everyone you meet, and have a great time. There's lots of doors to explore.
And one thing I also want to share is I wasn't doing this at first, but I've gone into some rooms where I don't feel comfortable with the atmosphere, with the discussion, with the vibe, and I would still hang out there because I didn't want to offend the host or the moderators. And now I just leave quietly. And I'm not going to spend my time. So I think that's okay to do. Go where you feel a connection.
Ultimately, time's your most valuable asset, so treat it accordingly. I thoroughly agree.
And thank you for walking into that about time, because our time has come to an end on this show right now. But it's really been fun. And
thank you both for being such gracious hosts and making it so easy for me to share. It's definitely been a pleasure. So thank you very much.
Well, you certainly have an incredible life story, and I just appreciate your authenticity, your transparency, and your affirmations and your positivity. So that's what this show is all about. That's what this platform is all about. And thank you for gracing our stage today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you,
Cheers.
Dr.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. He is really terrific. And again, that's a story for a movie. I'm surprised you're not on top of this already.
It was a movie, Dr. Jen.
It was a movie.
Yeah, it was called The Rogue Trader. It wasn't from Daniel's perspective, though, so perhaps they could do a prequel or something like that, or a sequel to Rogue Trader, which was about Nick Leeson's journey and how he brought down the Royal Bank. We used to call it the Royal Bank. Barings. So at the moment, the film industry, because of COVID, they're desperate for stories and stuff like that. And I think that would be a great. I'd
like to see Nick. I'd like to see. Let me see if I can qualify. So you can produce, right? You have connections, and I think that if you took this on I'm just saying it publicly, you took this on as a project and had Daniel as starring as himself, that would be amazing. Dr.
J, currently you're my project. When I finished your project, but I think Daniel and I will be staying in touch, hopefully, if he's okay with that, for quite a while afterwards. Good. It looks like he's shaking his head backstage. So, Dr. Who, I'm going to spotlight you. Just share with us some of the things that you're doing. And listen, you've added a tremendous amount of value to my life, and you're helping so many other people. Yeah, so, guys, at the moment, I've decided to just go off a little tangent from my Doctor Who of business personality and become a real Doctor Who in the film world. Hence, Dr. J mentioning about producing and so on. Also, I still have the businesses where we're helping people in terms of living a better life through having fresher air, which is free of COVID. And in fact, now that COVID in many countries is dying down, we're finding that the systems are helping people with allergies such as asthma and hay fever and so on. So people have needed less medicine and they've got better places to live in. Apart from those businesses, just really focusing on the film industry and seeing what we can do there. So, guys, as always, thank you for tuning in, listening to us. Thank you for the many, many blessings that you give to us and our guests. Thank you very much, Dr. Who. I'm always honored to be on the same stage with you. Oh, and the same as well. You're an incredible woman, Dr. J. You're an inspiration to many other people who are entrepreneurs. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm just going to close out the show and let people know about what's coming after this. So it's a pleasure seeing you. And if you have a couple minutes backstage, I'd like to just chat with you briefly. Yay! Yay! Okay. Thank you, Dr. Who. Well, we've had 2 phenomenal shows so far today, and we've got another one coming up, the Business Talk Show with my co-host Al Cini, and that's at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 7 p.m. British Summer Time, followed by A Better You.
lessons from the best coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors. This is our presentation platform. If you are a coach, consultant, or trusted advisor, think about all of the information that you have in this brain that you could share with the world. People are looking to learn. People want to be better, and they want to hear from experts like you. So we ask that you come on and present a 15-minute lesson, and then we'll ask you for a 5-question quiz about the lesson, and you start to build your own playlist of content that is then made available for sale. So you can earn passive income and help people at the same time. So that's at 4 o'clock Eastern time. We have 2 expert presenters. That is 9 p.m. British Summer Time. And then our last show of the day is In the Name of Love. And that's at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time and 10:30 p.m. British Summer Time. My last announcement for right now is my new book, my first published book, yay. It's available on Amazon. And here is the cover, Behind the Green Screen, How to Succeed in the Live Broadcasting Business. This is my journey of how and why I left the corporate world, some of my personal stories of things that happened to me while I was in corporate, and then how I built this broadcasting platform since August with one show, which was on the radio only, on the phone, to Zoom, and now to StreamYard. So I hope you'll head over to Amazon.com and just Google my name, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and I would love it if you purchased my book. It would mean so much. And if you do purchase, please feel free to write a review and share an honest recollection of your thoughts about the book. Thank you again. Okay, I'll be leaving you and coming back for the business show shortly. Thank you again for joining us. We really value you, and we love the fact that you're with us on this journey.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.